Hello, World, and thank you for joining me. I'm Bill, and I'm the Director of Strategy and Content for the event. Video, and especially short form video, is nowadays becoming the one thing that marketers are using, trying to leverage, and also people's favorite piece of content. Together with me, I have Emma Henry from Quick Frame. She's going to be discussing how we can leverage short form video content and everything around short form video and video itself on social media so that we can engage our audience and make meaningful connections. Emma, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Bill. Great to be here.
Amazing. So I want to start with a really important and also interesting and timely question as well. Why do you think the TikTok style short form kind of content has become so popular, and why are creators and every brand are out there competing to create video first experiences?
Great question. Definitely the burning one on all of our minds, because we are seeing this short form video everywhere right now, not just on TikTok. So TikTok's popularity grew exponentially over COVID times and quarantine, but it grew so much now that we're seeing it on other platforms that are trying to mimic the success that TikTok saw. So this includes like Instagram is adding Reels and YouTube is adding Shorts. And the reason why we think consumers are loving this so much is because it allows everyone to create really entertaining content, not just video professionals. So I think most of us of a certain age can remember Vine back in the day. This was the first time that we were able to see this short form video content from people just like you and me, but watch it as entertaining as the stuff we see on TV. So users now have less than like a minute to get their message across, which means that they have to be super creative to get their message out in less than 60 seconds. And along with this creativity, they also have access to editing tools, filters, trending songs, and access to other users' videos. So therefore, we get some really, really great content.
100%. And I think what comes along with native content is advertising. So what do you think is one common misconception when it comes to advertising on video first channels?
Great question. One thing that we've heard a lot in the industry that we think people are leaning away from is that the short form video content, especially TikTok, is just for kids. It's just for Gen Z. That's very much so not true. We think that the uniquest aspect of this type of video is the large variety of audience members who not only watch this content, but also post this content. And the algorithm of most of these platforms makes sure to give the users the type of content that that specific person wants and likes. So that allows people of all different ages, generations, and interests to be able to find their niche. It's not just Gen Z. And while it might be, feel like it's extra popular with Gen Z, a reason why this video is popular with everyone is that it's just addicting. So everybody being able to create this really entertaining style is a lot more entertaining than scrolling through and seeing a bunch of edited photos. It feels more authentic, and you get this little shot of dopamine. And that is not just with the younger audiences, but all the way baby boomers, your grandparents are on it, everybody's there.
Definitely. Plus, we know that, image is more entertaining and more engaging than text, and video is more entertaining than like a single image, same as we were used to. So why do you think it's important? Because as you mentioned, and this is really, a right observation, it's not just TikTok. YouTube has now Reels. Instagram has Reels. YouTube has Shorts. Like there's other platforms that are competing. Even Google is launching its own products, I think, in the Indian marketing and trying to compete in short form video content. Why is it important to be present in more than just one platform, like more than just TikTok?
Yeah, it is very important to be on more than just one platform. It's important for advertisers and brands to be on multiple of these video first apps. And that's because we recommend that brands should always have a diverse media landscape. That means being on multiple platforms and not just being on many platforms, but having a fluid creative strategy across them all. So to really convert your audience, you have to be everywhere that they might be. If you're choosing to only advertise on Facebook, then that means that you are missing out on the highly engaged audience that's on TikTok or that's on CTV. And it's definitely likely that the majority of your audience is on multiple platforms. And so seeing your brand be able to fit in with the style of content on all of those platforms will keep your brand the top of mind. We have seen studies that show that consumers are actually paying a lot more attention to brand cues when they see an ad on one platform like TikTok if they've already seen your brand on a different platform like CTV. So their brain's already attuned to your brand cues, what you're saying, so they'll pay more attention when they see it another time. So that means having it on multiple platforms is really beneficial.
And do you think there's specific platforms that, maybe later generations than Gen Z engage more with or most with, that makes it on its own a reason to be on that platform? Yeah,
for sure. So we did say before that you can reach older generations outside of just Gen Z on TikTok. But more often than not, if you're targeting people above Gen Z, they're likely to be found on like legacy social media channels like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And so if you want to experiment with this like video first short form content style, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts might be a good first stop in reaching your audiences through this new experience. But we would say, to prioritize your media budgets on the platforms that most of your audience is on, and then let the performance dictate where it's worth it to spend.
Definitely. And I love how Facebook and now Instagram and YouTube are becoming legacy channels, even though they're quite so new in the journey of digital marketing overall. But I have to ask at this point, like a lot of the content on these platforms feels like user-generated content. What's the difference of trying to create that content either in-house or through an agency partner versus partnering directly with creators? Like, why should brands, try to do one versus the other?
This is a topic we touch on a lot with brands, probably from every single different vertical. It's not just, okay, do we need to be on these platforms, but it goes, what content do we need? And then how do we make this content specific to each platform? And so we want all brands to know that you do not have to work with influencers to get really great content for your brand and to be relevant on these platforms. While working with influencers or popular creators can help your reach, it can also often be very expensive. And it usually means that brands have very little say in what the video actually looks like. This is you kind of trusting an influencer to do what fits with their personality and tie your brand into it. But if you're working with a creative partner, an agency, or a vendor like QuickFrame, we are trusted by the platforms themselves, which means that we know the best practices for the platforms. And we're used to working with a lot of brands, probably like yours, to create on-brand content. So this means that working with external partners, you'll be able to get some good content that's not only a fit for the platform, but is also on brand for you. And so we take like this knowledge that we have about the industry that's specific to your brand, your vertical, your use case, your platform, and tie that into creating your content in ways that sometimes like an influencer or a freelancer might not have.
Yeah, no, definitely that makes sense. And ties to something else I wanted to ask, like what's a typical, because you said, an influencer will do it their way or their style, or you might be, left with one video. What's the typical amount of videos that a brand should make for their video first strategy?
The typical amount of videos, I wish I had one right answer. Unfortunately, there's not really a set amount of videos that you should definitely make sure that you have. It really depends on your objectives and the platforms on which you want your ads to run. And continuing from our last question, if you're working with a creative vendor, they can help you not only with getting all of these videos done without it being a big lift on your plate, but we can help strategize your video output to make sure that not only your deadlines are met, but that your goals are met. And so the most important thing we would say for like numbers of videos would be just to make sure that you have enough to do some experimenting. So you want to do some performance testing to get some learnings to then bring into your next campaign. And a way you can think about this is while you're going through pre-production, when you're planning out the content you want to make, you can think about how many different ways are you planning on using these videos? How many different audiences are you speaking to? What messages do you want to get across? What do you want to learn about what gets your audience to convert? And so all of those answers will kind of give you a running tally on how many different versions of videos you ultimately need to create to figure out what sticks for your brand.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. And then in terms of the type of video or the content on the video itself, I think it's also like a typical marketing question. Should we try to cast, as wide a net as possible, like try to include everything in one video, or try to segment, for example, the different content styles or calls to action that we have in our videos? What would be your advice on that one?
Yeah, that's also a very good question, because it's not just as simple as, all right, create some ads with different end cards. And again, this will depend on your goals and also your platforms. So if we're looking at like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, CTV, QuickFrame likes to take what we call a multivariate approach. And this means that we want to start with a set of distinct variables that you can test, like on-screen talent or different locations or messaging. And then we refine your campaigns down to the key variables that are driving the strongest performance. So we can test out different CTAs, different talent, different opening card. And that might sound like, holy cow, that's a lot. But the cool thing about this like native video first experience is that just with a few little tweaks in editing, you can run the same ad creative on a lot of platforms without having to shoot additional footage. However, the other part of your question, which was casting a wide net, we would recommend that strategy if you're looking at video first platforms like TikTok or Snap or even Reels now, which is trying to be just like TikTok. So there, just because the style is very different, consumers aren't as used to it as what you're seeing on Facebook. We would recommend casting a wider net and trying out a lot of unique concepts instead of more granular A/B testing, so that you can learn what type of video, what vibe, what style of like content will resonate best with your audiences on those platforms.
Yeah, I love that. And a topic that I think any Facebook advertiser or marketer would agree with is ad fatigue, right? So and it has definitely troubled us in the past. Is it really an issue, or is it something we should be worried about when it comes to short form video?
Always. I know that's not the answer that we want, but we should always be worried about ad fatigue. It is definitely a concern across all platforms, from paid social to organic to CTV and TV itself. You really want to make sure that you're producing a regular stream of new ad creative so that your content will not grow stale. I mean, we all remember the years ago where we saw like the same FanDuel and DraftKings commercial on every single TV and every single phone that we had. We get bored. And so we want to have this always on creative strategy with fresh new content so people understand your updates and aren't getting bored and just tuning out your message. And if you're using trusted partners like QuickFrame or agencies, you can get a lot more content to support this always on creative strategy. And it'll help you keep up with trends and always be doing what's performing at the time. But you don't have to be spending a ton of time or need like a whole new set of budgets just to get new content out every month or every week.